Likkutei Sichos, Chelek Chav Gimel, Volume 23, the second Sicha for Parashas Chukas. This Sicha will explain Rashi's approach to what exactly was the miracle with the well of Miriam and what exactly they sang Shira over. They had that special song that they sang similar to what they did at Kriyas Yamsuf. Just as an introduction, any style of learning, when one learns a Torah, whether it's Pshat, Remes, Drus, Soid, has its own mannerism, so to speak, its own rationale. So when you learn Rashi, which Rashi, of course, is exclusively, as he himself states, Pshutei Shel Mikra, the simple, basic meaning of the verse, so one needs to, so to speak, to get into the mindset of the Pshutei Shel Mikra, and through that understand why Rashi chose to explain, to comment in the way that he did, or the way that he does. That's number one. Number two, usually when Rashi gives his comment, he gives it in the most concise manner. He doesn't add any fluff, so to speak. So it's certain when Rashi explains it at length, or especially when he adds a parable, that there has to be a compelling reason for it, and that needs to be explored. Let's go into the Sicha. So the Rebbe says it was discussed many times that Rashi himself states, in reference to his pirush, to his commentary on the Torah, Ani lo basi elo lefarish pshutei shel mikra, that my sole purpose exclusively is to explain pshutei shel mikra. And Rashi adds in Chumash Bereshis, Ula-agada hamiyasheves divrei hamikra, that sometimes I bring agada, which is like medrash, that explains the psukim in a manner that fits in with the pshutei shel mikra, with the pasuk itself. And therefore, when you see sometimes that Rashi draws from a medrash, in other words, you see clearly that his source for what he's saying is a medrash. Sometimes he even states that it's a medrash. However, he deviates sometimes in some of the details, sometimes in the general narrative. He deviates from the medrash. That itself tells you that that was an imperative, so to speak, according to the way that Rashi explains the pasuk. In other words, it was compelling to Rashi that although he draws his pirush as his source is the medrash, but yet he has to change slightly, or sometimes more than slightly, from the actual medrash itself. So you see a great example for it in our parsha regarding the description in the parsha of the travels and the encampments of the Yidden. And this starts in chapter 21. If you look verse 13, Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Yud Gimel, it says, Vayachanu me'ever Arnon, that they camped the other side of Arnon. And then the Torah relates regarding that encampment, Al Kain Yomar b'Sefer Milchames Hashem. Therefore, it is said, it is related in the book of the wars, of the victories of Hashem. It says, "Es vohe b'sufa v'sanecholim arnei." That which Hashem gave by Sufa, which l'chayra means like Suf, the sea of reeds, and that which happened in the Necholim, in the wadis of Arnon. And then it continues and it says, Ve'eshed hanecholim asher nota l'shebes or, and the spilling of the streams of the wadis, which were turned to the settlement of Ar, and Venishon ligvul Moav, and they leaned towards the border of Moav. And then the pasuk describes how they found, or it was found, the well of Miriam, and then how the Yidden, Oz Yashir Yisrael es Ashira Zayisad, then they sang the special song of tribute for the special well, for the miracle, or whatever it is, and they said, Ali Be'er Anulah, ascend a well and sing to it. So Rashi, explaining these verses, especially verse 14 and 15, he describes in detail, in long detail, all the miracles that happened there. And he says that there was a narrow valley through which Bnei Yisrael passed. This valley, this wadi, was between very tall mountains on either side. And these mountains were in such a manner that on one side, the mountains had these caves, like these cavities. On the other side, the mountains parallel to it had these protruding boulders that stuck out from the mountain. And the Amorim, the Goyim, they hid there in these cavities, in these caves. And their plan was that when the Yidden passed through deep below, in the wadi, in the valley, that's when they're going to throw in them all kinds of stones and projectiles and smite them. What did Hashem do? Hashem made both mountains come together, says Rashi, and these protruding boulders went into these holes, into these cavities, and it crushed them all to death. Afterwards comes the pasuk, Umisham Be'era, and from there they came to the Be'era, which means to the well, or the well place, and this is the well which Hashem had told Moshe to speak to the well, and so on, from which came out the water. So Rashi explains, what does it mean, Misham? What does it mean from there, Be'er, that from there came the Eshed, from there came the spilling of the valleys, which I mentioned before, to the well. How so, says Rashi? Hashem said, I'm quoting Rashi now, who will notify my children about the great miracles that took place here? And he says, the parable says, quote, you gave a piece of bread to a child, you must notify the mother. So what happened? After, says Rashi, after they passed through, the mountains went back to their original place, and the well started to flow through there, and the spilling started to flow there and caught up with the well, and that brought up, he says, all the blood of the goyim that were killed, and all the various arms and limbs, and it made it flow all around the encampment of the Bnei Yisrael, and that's how they knew, they saw it, says Rashi, and that's when they all burst out into song and they said Shira. Now the source for Rashi is in Medrash Tanchuma and Medrash Rabbah. However, over there are significant differences that stand out in the way the Medrash presents the miracle versus the way Rashi presents the miracle. For example, the Medrash says that the miracle took place in the following manner. That there were, yes, indeed, that there were these caves, these holes, these cavities in the mountain, and that the mountains came together and killed them. However, that a significant portion of the Goyim were actually down in the valley waiting there to ambush the Jewish people. And what happened, the well came in and overflowed like a raging river, and it basically killed them in, I guess, similar to what happened in Kriyas Yamsuf, that the water overwhelmed the Goyim and killed them. However, Rashi only presents one miracle. According to Rashi, it's only the miracle that the mountains came together and killed them. It's the well's, so to speak, place in the story is only that the well was the one to wash all the body parts up and bring it around, make it flow around the encampment of the Yidden, so they were able to become aware of the fact that this miracle took place. The question is, Rashi himself explains on the words, es vahev besufa, that what he gave them in Sufa, that what does this mean? That this is compared to the miracles that happen in Yamsuf. That just like we quote, we relate the great miracles, we talk about the great events of Yamsuf, so too over here, we talk about the great events, and they sang about the great miracles that took place. However, following this way of explaining the words as Vohe Besufa, it would seem more compelling that Rashi should explain it like the Medrash, because you're saying there's a similarity to Yamsuf. But indeed, the way Rashi explains the miracle, there isn't a similarity to Yamsuf. It happened in a totally different manner. Moreover, the verse describes how they said the song to and about the well itself. But according to the way Rashi explains it, the well was not a component of the miracle, or so it seems. In other words, what role is the well playing here in the miracle that they sang a song to it or about it? According to the Medrash, it makes sense. The miracle played an active role in the well played an active role in the miracle. It was a major component in the miracle. However, according to what we stated in the beginning, that Rashi deviates from the Medrash itself, sometimes in some of the details or many of the details, based on his exclusivity to stick to Pshutei Shemikra, the basic, simple meaning of the verse, we can understand the reason for these differences. You see, the Eshed HaNecholim, Asher Nota L'Sheves Or, this verse that says that there was the pouring of the wadi that leaned that leaned to the settlement of Ar, because Asher can mean also not that, but because of that, and then Vinishon Legvul Moav, that it leaned towards the border of Moav, doesn't seem. It seems to only be expressing the idea about leaning towards something, and here it makes sense according to Rashi, because one mountain leaned towards the other, which this is leaning towards the border, to the direction of the border of Moav. But it doesn't mention anything in the pasuk regarding the idea of a drowning. Therefore, Rashi feels compelled, according to Pshutei Shemikra, to explain that there was only one miracle. And based on this, we'll also appreciate some other differences that appear between Rashi and the Medrash. Let's take, for example, the Medrash says that the well went down into those caves and brought out the body parts, but it's the Yidden that looked for it. They were looking for the well. Where did it go? And when they found it, they became aware of these tremendous miracles. However, Rashi, in contrast, says that the well is the one that went down into the wadi, into the valley, and it's the one who brought everything up to the Jewish people. That's one difference. Another one that stands out is the Medrash says that the well, the Be'er, brought out skulls and arms and feet and all kinds of body parts. Versus Rashi, who emphasizes that there was the, quote, the blood of those who were killed and the arms and the limbs. It doesn't say anything about skulls or anything else. Now there's another issue that we need to tackle, and which we'll understand now based on all this. Rashi, he brings a parable. Who needs the parable? What would not have been understood in the pasuk or in Rashi's explanation without the parable? In other words, how does this add? How does this contribute to our appreciation of what took place? And in fact, another issue. The mashal itself, the parable itself, says that you have to notify the mother about the fact that you gave a gift, that you gave bread to the mother's child. But here, it was the Yidden, so to speak, the, quote, child himself, who was being notified. So how does the parable fit in? And then, like I said, according to the Medrash, it's the Jewish people, it's the Yidden who came to look for the well and found it, versus Rashi, and the question is, where does he get it from? Where does he understand it from? Rashi says, no, the well made it flow out, and it came and it surrounded the entire encampment. It flowed all around the Jewish people, and that's when they saw it. So to answer all of this, and to understand, so to speak, the rationale over here, what is going on, and therefore how everything adds up and must be the way Rashi says according to Pshutei Shemikra, and to the extent to understand this, there's questions over here that are really very fundamental. Because if you think about it, if you look in other Pashtani Hamikra, other commentaries which also typically present their commentaries in a manner that's consistent with Pshutei Shemikra, they do not explain it the way Rashi explains it. They explain it totally different. Because it seems that if you look at the pasuk literally, the pasuk is not talking about a miracle. The pasuk, when it says that it's leaning towards the border of Moav, or Asher Nata L'Sheves Ar, that it's leaning towards the settlement of Ar, to settle in Ar, doesn't have anything to do with a miracle, according to those Pashtani HaMikra. In fact, they explain that this is just giving us a geographical description of where they encamped. According to them, that's the way it fits in with the pasuk. However, Rashi explains that this is an indication of the miracle. So how does he get to this? How does he come up with the idea of a mountain and so on, according to Pshutei Shemikra? This seems to be more medrash than Pshutei Shemikra. The answer is as follows. In Chumash, we have many stories of victories of the Jewish people, we have many stories of miracles that occurred to Bnei Yisrael over the time that were in the desert. However, this episode here, as well as Kriyas Yamsuf, are unique. They stand out. How do they stand out? Because only by Kriyas Yamsuf and in the story over here with the Be'er do we have a situation in which the Bnei Yisrael sang Shira. I mean, it's certain that they always thanked Hashem for the miracles, but they did not go so far to sing a Shira. Over here they did. And from this, here's the key. From this, Rashi derives that there is a parallel between Kriyas Yamsuf, between these two miracles, Kriyas Yamsuf, and the miracle that took place over here. And that's why he explains the words as Vahe V'Sufa to mean that just like Hashem gave us an opportunity at Kriyas Yamsuf, and we always take advantage of that opportunity and talk about the great miracles, so too over here, V'Sanecholim Arnoin, about the Wadi of Arnon, the flowings of the Wadis of Arnon, so too we speak of that too. So the general narrative of the story here parallels to the story of Kriyas Yamsuf. And from this, Rashi concludes, this is not a geographic description, but rather telling us a story about a miracle. What indeed distinguishes the miracle from Kriyas Yamsuf from all other miracles? Well, by Kriyas Yamsuf, there was something very unique. When Moshe Rabbeinu started to pray to Hashem, what did he say? You go and let me do my thing. And Moshe turns to the people and he says, Hashem yilachem lachem. Hashem will fight, will wage war for you. Va'atem tacharishon. And you shall remain silent. So over there, the Yidden did not have to take an active role in fighting the war. Most other wars, most other incidents, they had to fight. They had to actually go out to war. And Hashem made a miracle that he saved them from their enemies. He made them victorious, even though maybe they didn't stand a chance. But by Kriyas Yamsuf, it's so unique, so exclusive, that Hashem fought to them. And now we can appreciate, over here too is the same thing. We see how it's exactly the same. They didn't even know about the danger. They didn't even know that a miracle happened. Hashem brought the miracle to them. He brought the awareness of the miracle to them. They literally didn't do anything, not even fear the danger, and this makes it parallel, according to Rashi. When Rashi sees it, it makes it parallel to Kriyas Yamsuf. And now we can appreciate why he brought the parable. You see, because even though they are very similar, these two great miracles, but still, in our case, meaning the miracle in our psukim that we're discussing, stands out and is somewhat unique even from the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf. Because by Kriyas Yamsuf, like I mentioned, they were aware of the threat. They knew about the danger. In fact, they were screamed out. They were worried. They were afraid. Over here, they didn't even know about the danger. They had no clue that there was a danger, that there was a miracle. And therefore Hashem says, who's going to notify them? I did such a great miracle for them. They have to know. The question is, what is this idea about saying to a mother? What is this motherly thing that comes into play? Well, we know that when they were traveling for the 40 years in the Midbar, Moshe Rabbeinu was like a mother. Moshe Rabbeinu basically served the role as a mother. He took care of everything that they need. He worried about them. He cared for them. He gave them food. He gave them shelter. Anytime there was a problem, he was the one to stand up for them, and so on and so forth. In addition, the Rebbe says you can look at the Be'er itself, at the well itself. What did the well do? It gave them all the nutrients. It gave them the water, which is the most vital nutrient that one needs. In this sense, the Be'er, the well, is also in a sense, like metaphorically at least, like a mother. And that's what happened. Hashem says, and that's where the parable comes in. And now we understand how the well comes to play a key role in here, and why they're saying Shira to the Be'er, to the well. Hashem says, who's going to notify? Who's going to notify Moshe Rabbeinu about this? Who's going to notify the well? The mother, quote unquote, needs to know. I did a miracle for them. Really, it was Moshe. Really, it was the Be'er who should have protected them. But they didn't, because they weren't even privy to the fact that there was a danger. So I am going to come, says Hashem, with the Eshed HaNecholim. I am going to make the pouring of the wadi into the well, and it's going to mix with it, and it's going to let the well know, and Moshe, of course, and through that to all the Yidden, that a great miracle took place here. Now, what is the purpose now in letting them know? In other words, what is the real purpose behind letting the mother know that you gave her child a piece of bread? You gave him a piece of bread. He's full now. Why tell the mother? Because now the mother can use this as a learning experience to go explain to the child what great benefit the child got, that this person gave the child a piece of bread and that he was able to sustain himself. So basically that the mother is there to teach the child, to make the child aware how to appreciate the great favor that the person who gave the piece of bread did for him. And so too over here. That's why the well didn't just receive the information, so to speak, but the well went ahead, and this is where Rashi gets it from, and had to notify all the Yidden, all the little children, so to speak, in this parable, that this great miracle took place for them. However, according to the Medrash, totally different. The well itself performed the miracle, was a component of the miracle, and therefore they had to go look for the well. But Rashi needs to place the well somewhere, and why they said Shira. Now, naturally, because the well, who is, quote, their mother in this parable, notified them about this great miracle, and typically the well would protect them, as well as Moshe, therefore they, quote, sang a Shira to the well, to the, quote unquote, mother. And now we can appreciate this, why Rashi uses the expression right at the end, that now when they saw the miracle, they saw the be'er making the body parts flow around the encampment, they saw it and they sang Shira. Because Rashi uses this very similar expression by the first Shira, by Kriyas Yamsuf. When it says, Oz Yashir Moshe, then Moshe sang. When is then? So Rashi says over there, quote, when he saw the miracle, they appreciated the miracle. Now Moshe had it in his mind to sing. In other words, that triggered the desire, the notion that it's time to sing, that we need to sing. Likewise over here. Once they saw it, that's when they decided to sing. Another thing I forgot to mention, the Rebbe explains why Rashi changes from the Medrash and emphasizes that there was the blood and the arms, because the blood is where the life is. So they saw the life, that they understood that the people who wanted to kill him were dead. And the blood flows with the water. It changed the color of the water, so they understood what that means. But also the arms usually show the strength of a person. So the Bnei Yisrael were able to appreciate the enormity of the miracle. When they saw the types of arms that were floating around, and the strength that they had in their muscles and those arms, they understood what kind of danger they were facing, and they appreciated the miracle even more so.